They poisoned him. He survived. They shot him. He stood back up. They threw him into a frozen river. That's the story almost everyone knows. But what if almost every part of that story was wrong? Because the only person who told that story was one of the killers. By 1916, no man in Russia was more hated. Ministers blamed him. Newspapers mocked him. Nobles called him a fraud. But one family still trusted him completely. The royal family. Their son, Alexei, had hemophilia. Every injury could kill him. The best doctors in Russia had no answers. Then someone showed up. His name was Grigori Rasputin, a peasant from Siberia. No education, no title, nothing. And according to Empress Alexandra, the boy stopped bleeding. Nobody knows exactly what happened. But for a mother who had run out of hope, it didn't matter. Rasputin had something no one else in Russia had: the absolute trust of the Empress. While Russia was losing the war, while people were starving, while the empire was falling apart piece by piece, a Siberian peasant was whispering into the ear of the most powerful woman in the country. The nobles looked at that and reached a conclusion. He had to go. They believed killing one man could save an entire empire. At least, that's the story they left behind. So on the night of December 29th, 1916, they invited him to dinner. Prince Felix Yusupov, one of the wealthiest men in Russia, married to the Tsar's niece, had been planning this for weeks. The plan was simple. Lure Rasputin to the Moika Palace. Poison him with cyanide hidden in cakes and wine. Dump the body in the river. On the night of December 29th, Rasputin arrived. Yusupov led him down to the basement. Cakes on the table, wine in the glasses. All of it laced with poison. According to Yusupov, Rasputin ate the cakes, drank the wine, and nothing happened. According to Yusupov, that amount of cyanide was enough to kill several men. But that wasn't the strangest part of the story. That night, Yusupov pulled out a gun and shot Rasputin in the chest. Rasputin collapsed. Yusupov and the others left the room to figure out what to do with the body. A few minutes later, Yusupov came back, and Rasputin was staring straight at him. Everything you just heard came from one man, Felix Yusupov, the man who planned the assassination, the man who carried it out, and the man who later told the world what happened, in a memoir published 10 years later. Think about that for a second. The most famous version of the Rasputin legend, the man who couldn't be poisoned, couldn't be shot, couldn't be killed, comes entirely from the account of one of his killers. There were no independent witnesses to confirm the story, and the records that do exist raise far more questions than answers. Many historians believe Yusupov had every reason to make the story more dramatic than it really was. The forensic record tells a completely different story. If Yusupov was telling the truth, the autopsy should confirm it. It didn't. The autopsy report found no evidence of poisoning, which means the most famous part of the legend, the cyanide that should have killed him, may never have happened at all. But that was just the first contradiction. Then there were the bullet wounds. Yusupov described shooting Rasputin in the chest. Then Rasputin allegedly stood up, ran into the courtyard, and was shot several more times from a distance. But forensic photographs show a gunshot wound to the head, at very close range. That doesn't match the scene Yusupov described. And finally, what actually killed Rasputin? Modern analysis suggests he most likely died from a close-range gunshot wound to the head, not from poison, not from drowning in an icy river. That night, Rasputin died, but Yusupov's story lived on. Yusupov's story survived because it arrived at exactly the right moment, because just months later, the entire Russian Empire collapsed. 300 years of power, gone in a matter of months. Killing Rasputin didn't save the empire. Yusupov lost everything. But 10 years later, he took back control of the story. And in that memoir, the legend truly began. Rasputin became something close to a demon who couldn't be killed. In his own telling, Yusupov was no longer just a killer. He was the man who defeated a monster. And at that exact moment, Russia needed an explanation. If Rasputin could manipulate the entire royal family, then the Russian Empire didn't collapse because the system was broken. It collapsed because of one man, a mad peasant from Siberia. That night, Rasputin died, but Yusupov's story, a mad peasant from Siberia. That night, Rasputin died, but Yusupov's story was believed by the entire world for over a century. They poisoned him. They shot him. They threw him into a frozen river. And that story was believed by the entire world for more than a century. The world didn't believe the story about Rasputin because it was true. The world believed it because it was easier than the truth. Rasputin was just a man killed by people who needed him to be a monster. They killed Rasputin, but in doing so, they made him immortal.